So I'll let them introduce themselves and they can tell you a little bit more about what they do and kind of why they're here and what they're about. So,
Start at the far end, perhaps.
Ti vuoi introdurre?
Salve a tutti, mi chiamo Assunta Guglielmi e ho avuto la grande fortuna di essere parte di questo gruppo di persone fantastiche che io ringrazio in una maniera profondissima.
So she's Assunta Guglielmi, and she's thankful to have been part of this fantastic group of people. Oh yes, sorry. I'm Ian Bairstow, and I was the interpreter and translator during the filming of their documentary.
So I'm Nico Aulitano. I helped them to coordinate all the visits we had in Italy. In Italy we call this center, this reception center structures. In these structures, and because I'm from Monteroduni, Assunta's from Monteroduni, and in our very small town there is one of this center. So thanks to our friendship with the owner, we were able to go inside the center and have that great experience together.
My name is Peter Cullen. I'm for Villanova, resident program director for Villanova programs in Urbino, and North American Relations Manager for the University of Urbino. My job in all of this was basically to help set up a container in which they could do their job with the students. So I've had sort of a secondary role, and it's been a lot of fun and a great pleasure to watch this all come together. Thank you very much on behalf of the University of Urbino and on behalf of our crew for inviting us over to participate in this.
Thank you guys for your introduction. So our first question to you guys will be, what is the atmosphere in Italy pertaining to the migrants? Can you tell us some of the ways in which Italy is handling the influx of migrants and how you're all personally involved with the issue?
Allora, possiamo dire che diciamo da tanto tempo, diciamo che la questione dell'immigrazione è un problema a cui mi sono avvicinata da un po' di anni, e tutto è nato diciamo in seguito in particolare ad un evento che è successo nel 2010 in Italia, e si tratta di una importantissima e prima grande rivolta di lavoratori di origine africana in Italia, nel sud Italia, in Calabria. Una grande rivolta diciamo che di cui episodi si sono svolti per 3 giorni, che ha coinvolto diciamo la popolazione locale per 3 giorni, e appunto riguardava lavoratori impiegati nel campo agricolo, in particolar modo nella raccolta di arance, di agrumi, mandarini, e in seguito ad un'aggressione che non era la prima, era un'aggressione diciamo come quelle che si verificavano da diverso tempo, e che diciamo come episodio di rivolta diciamo ha sconvolto l'opinione pubblica, e non solo italiana, ha avuto una grande risonanza a livello internazionale.
Okay. So this is a topic that she's been close to for a few years now, and it all started in an event in 2010, which was an important strike and revolt of African workers in the south of Italy. And they were agricultural workers who worked picking oranges mostly. And this revolt was caused by a aggression towards them, which was not even the first. It was one of many. And scusa, l'aggressione. Okay. And so that's what caused her to become involved in and research this topic.
So one of the things following from what, I can't find it now, Professor Cazzoni was mentioning, immigration in Italy has gone through a number of phases, and there are two aspects, primary aspects to it now: immigration from all around the world of people who come to settle, and the recent refugee crisis. So what brought Assunta closer to the argument was this sort of late phase exploitation in southern agricultural practices of migrant laborers who were probably long-term residents. And by 2010, we're looking at a new phase of refugee immigrants from coming across in inflatable boats and through the trafficking through North Africa, et cetera, et cetera. So since the crew has came over last October, we're looking at a new season, because this is a seasonal issue. As the Mediterranean calms down in the spring and the boats start coming in, we've already had quite a few hundred dead in recent weeks. We're looking at another pressure on the country as European countries have started closing the borders and closing or creating agreements to stop the flow from the recent hotspot, which has been Syria. So since the Greeks and the Turks have come to an arrangement, that border is closed for Syrians. We're looking at a new orientation from the Middle East towards Italy. We have recently, I think it was a week and a half ago, we had Italian citizens clash with Austrian police at the Brenner Pass between Austria and Italy as they decided to close the border. And this actually shakes the foundation of European unity, which is a basic policy and philosophy that has kept Europe peaceful for the last few decades. So as we look at the new season of the migrant crisis, the issues of stability in Europe, and as you mentioned, the global perspective of this otherwise Italian or Mediterranean question are going to be heating up quite a lot. So there are lots of challenges and a lot of dangers coming, but I think there's a great opportunity. I was really, really pleased to listen to you speak. There's the opportunity for the first time to, in a way, appropriately approach a new form of identity. And for the vast majority of incoming African migrants, probably not, but at least 20% or 25% might stay and become African Italians, and that's really something worth exploring. So we have some somewhat dramatic developments since the crew filmed last October, but I think we still have the same degree of hope for something that will really change the way Italian culture sees itself. And so far so good. What's that? Yeah.
What are some misconceptions that you guys have learned about the migrants in doing the work that you do? What are some things that you've learned about migrants that might be misrepresented in the media, or something that people say is true but isn't true through what you guys have done?
Traduce a lei. Sì, traduce bene. Non è personale. Infatti traduco da lui.
In che senso?
La domanda. La domanda l'hai capita? Perché se no rispondi fuori.
Cos'è sì una cosa che si sente parlare dei migranti che arrivano in Italia, però che non è vero?
Allora, diciamo che come tutti sappiamo, insomma, i media mainstream tendono a costruire un discorso in maniera strumentalizzata rispetto ai migranti, appunto come diceva Andrea prima, e i migranti sono visti come appunto delle persone di secondo grado oppure degli invasori, soprattutto ad esempio in questo momento in Italia, come se dovessero venire qui a togliere risorse o lavoro agli italiani in un momento in cui in un momento di grave crisi economica, in cui questo tipo di discorso va a alimentare fortemente un odio sociale che è già esasperato dalla crisi.
So, the media in Italy builds this migration crisis as a tool. Its discourse is a tool, and as Andrea was saying, migrants in Italy right now are being talked about by the media as almost invaders, as second-class people who come and use up valuable Italian jobs and resources in a moment of great crisis and great economic crisis in which resources and jobs aren't easy to come by. And that's what the Italian people, or a lot of them, see these migrants as at this point.
Just to add to that a second, one of the big problems with that media perception is, and this is very common in lots of different countries where there's labor migration for work and this sort of thing. The misrepresentation is fairly grave because since 2000, actually really since 2011, when Italy has been institutionally hit, let's say, or stressed by the financial crisis starting in 2008, Italians have access to a very highly developed social assistance network, and the migrants don't. And that doesn't get talked about very often. So you will see migrants, and here we're really not talking about the recent refugee status seekers. We're talking about migrants over the last 10 or 15 years who have perhaps worked for a while and lost their jobs, and they might be out on the streets, as Gazzoni was talking about, out on the streets selling books, selling gadgets, this sort of thing, but trying to, in a private way, make an income. And many of them actually have a tax number and pay taxes on that. That's not spoken about in the media. So often the misrepresentation is fantastically erroneous because they say, well, the kids, these migrants are taking, or immigrants are taking our jobs. But the flow of public money to factories to keep people in work lasted a good 3 years past the beginning of the financial crisis and kept those jobs going. Now that has run out, basically, and Italians are starting to lose their jobs. In 2011, we were losing 2,000 factories a day. People are going on unemployment insurance. African migrants have not had that opportunity. They've become micro-entrepreneurs on the margins often of fiscal legality, but they're very busy and very entrepreneurial. I think that's where some of the, I can't think of the right term for it, but some of the disappointment with the Italian socioeconomic system comes from. If you talked to a lot of people who have been in Italy for 10 or 15 years now, and you ask them, well, what advice would you give to new immigrants? They would say, don't come, because there's no socioeconomic space for you. That's not 100% true, but you can certainly sympathize with why they would say that. So the media distorts these things for political reasons, often literally for gaining seats in parliament in one party or another, or creating a coalitional arrangement in one government or another.
My experience, what media never said is migrants arrive in Italy. This is not their project of life. They don't want to stay in Italy. So the public opinion is very influenced by media. And everyone in Italy is thinking that, okay, they're coming here, they want our jobs, we don't have a job, but they don't want to stay there because they have relations much more than in Italy. They have a relation in Germany, they have a relation in France, in Sweden. So Italy is just the first country they can arrive there. But they don't want to stay. But our perception in Italy is, okay, these migrants are here, and that's all. Nobody is going to tell you that migrants don't want to stay. On 150 migrants I know, maybe just 2, 3 of them, they want to stay in Italy. But maybe because they have a girlfriend, not because of job or this kind of stuff. So this is the very distorted perception of the reality, in my opinion.
Now you're all in one way or another connected to Montreux-Duni. Can you tell us if a little bit about Montreux-Duni first, which is the location in which we've shot this film, and tell us about their interpretations of this migrant crisis, and can you speak a little bit on their reactions and their reflections upon this crisis, just so we can understand a little bit more about where you guys come from.
So, Montreux-Duni is a very small town, 2,200 people living there in our town, Sunta, we're from. And migrants arrived for the first time in March 2014, and when they arrived, was two different opinions in town. First aid, which was a little crew helping them when they arrived, because people were worried about them. So what they needed shoes, clothes, food, because the hotel, the structure where they are living, they were not able to host 104 migrants the first night. There aren't 104 beds, there aren't nothing there. And they were just arrived in Sicily. And when they arrived, they are very scared. Migrants are very scared, not just because of their trip, but of course, about the trip they had, but they are scared because they really don't know what's going to happen to their life. They don't know where they are going to live. They don't know they didn't know where Montreux-Duni is. And some of them actually still yeah, so the first impact was very stressful because people were fighting. The community was very very
Profoundly
pressed. Pressed. Because, for example, my dad and with a little crew, they went there to give them the first aid, but public opinion in our community started saying, okay, we don't have a job here, so why they're here? And they were scared because of the diseases they might have and criminality. This is a stereotype Andrea was talking about it. So this diseases, criminality, this is the imaging, the picture in Italy people have about poor people, about Africans, about migrants. So this was the first impact in our country. You want to add something?
Sì, diciamo che la reazione è il primo impatto, almeno c'è anche l'aspetto della comunità locale, e, che è stato anche quello di una gran parte di persone, diciamo, non conoscevano neanche la situazione, perché gli arrivi sono stati sì annunciati dai giornali locali, quindi diciamo, il sentimento diffuso era quello di, in un certo qual modo anche il linguaggio esprime la visione della popolazione locale, arrivano i profughi, cioè delle persone viste immediatamente come senza speranza e disperati, e che arrivano in un posto dove non si può dare loro niente, oltre che un primo intervento legato a beni di primissima necessità.
So, the first impact that the arrival of these immigrants made in Monteruduni was, first of all, made by the local newspapers who announced their arrival. And even the language that the newspapers used was refugees, profughi. And this gives the idea of people who are coming here without hope, that don't have any chances, and that we can only help by giving them things of most important necessity. And so that's what the population of Monteruduni kind of, their first sight of refugees was, just as people that we couldn't really understand or help.
Dall'altro lato c'erano appunto queste all'epoca 100 persone che nel momento in cui sono arrivate, come diceva Nicola, molto spaventate, molto provate, perché tu hai fatto un viaggio di 3 giorni in mare in condizioni pessime e sei arrivato vivo, per fortuna, che è una cosa, diciamo, che può sembrare banale, ma sappiamo tutti che non lo è. E, però arrivi qui in Italia, quindi finisce apparentemente quel trauma del viaggio e sei letteralmente catapultato in una dimensione che tu non conosci, non sei al corrente di dove ti porteranno. Dopo i primi controlli ci sono degli aerei o l'occasione o degli autobus che trasportano queste persone nei vari centri di accoglienza, anche dividendo talvolta amici o persone che erano partite insieme o magari si erano legate durante il viaggio. E i primi tempi, diciamo, la reazione era di grande, estrema gratitudine e dopo un po' però è subentrata la domanda e noi la domanda oppure semplicemente la riflessione che può essere sintetizzata in questo modo, nel senso che nessuno viene qui a parlare con noi non abbiamo bisogno di cose, noi abbiamo bisogno di relazioni, di esseri umani e di raccontarci anche.
So she adds that on the other side of the coin here is that in Monteroduni, 100 people arrived, and they arrived scared after 3 days at sea. And once they got to Italy, they were separated and put on planes and buses, often separated from friends and, most importantly, from families. And they arrive here and hoping that the trauma of their journey is over. But after the initial sense of gratitude for being, let's say, saved at sea, the question or reflection starts to come into their minds that it's not exactly only material goods that they need while they're here. They're in an isolated position outside of town and no one talks to them, no one comes to see them, and they need actual relationships with the people of the town and with Italians to be able to integrate and live there.
Diciamo che il problema perché nessuno viene qui a parlare con noi è perché diciamo proprio fisicamente a livello di spazio nella maggior parte dei casi diciamo i centri predisposti all'accoglienza si trovano in posti isolati dai centri abitati e nel caso di Monteroduni ad esempio a 5 km dal villaggio che è sulla collina e che diciamo può essere raggiunto solo faticosamente a piedi e soprattutto non in tutte le condizioni climatiche e non in tutti i momenti del giorno, per cui diciamo quello che poi in questo senso il centro di accoglienza di Monteroduni è un po' uno specchio di una condizione strutturale, di una tendenza strutturale a mettere da parte alcuni tipi di persone e per diciamo, il puro sentimento di difesa dell'ordine pubblico che potrebbe essere turbato come nel caso ad esempio di Rosarno e da persone che molto spesso si accettano solo finché restano invisibili.
Another reason why these people don't receive visits or communicate much is because, like I said, the centers are isolated. In the case of Monteroduni, it's 5 kilometers downhill, so it's very hard to actually get into town, especially during certain times of day or during certain weather conditions. And she's saying that these centers are almost a mirror of a tendency to separate these people for the, let's say, public order. Like in the case of Rosarno, the city in the south in which there was the revolt. They are separated so that there can be a sense of security because the other who has arrived is not in view, he's not seen, he's kind of out of the way.
Just to contextualize a little bit, the reception centers are governed through two types of relationships with the prefectures, so the representatives of the Ministry of the Interior in each province. One of the contractual relationships are private enterprises that are given state funds to act as reception centers. So in this case, and there are other types of cases, in this case in Monterodoni, it's a business transaction that has produced jobs for the town, and the town has come to understand that this is a job opportunity as well. And there, what you said about it functioning as a way of keeping this group of new people separate from the sort of central life of the town. This is a small town up on a hill, a walled town with a castle at the top. And the visual is actually fantastic. You can see it from the hotel where the immigrants are housed by the highway, and then the town is up on the top of the hill. The other type of contract that the ministry gives out through the provincial prefectures are housing and services. And those can be through private enterprises, hotels who are then bound to use state money to offer services like educational services or health services or workshop services. And then the other providers are NGOs. So NGOs and private businesses can compete for public tender contracts to offer these services. Some of each province probably has a couple of dozen of these reception centers. I don't know exactly for the province of Isernia how many there are. I think Pesaro has something like 30 or 35, so around the Urbino area. And there are these different typologies. The different types of contracts will condition the type of integration with local communities. Because an NGO who wins a contract that provides for services, some of the NGOs offer room board, medical and psychological health care, language training, other forms of education, and workshops so that the immigrants themselves provide training to local people in things that they're already expert in. We say refugees, migrants, immigrants as if they were all the same group of people. But you can have people with master's degrees in geography and people who are farmhands, and the whole range of humanity comes across because they think they're going to get something better. I've had great friendship for a few years with a PhD student from Nigeria who was writing a book of philosophy about dying in the streets slowly by selling Kleenexes in Italy while never finishing his PhD. And I don't actually know what happened to him. So the relationship between the service provider for the refugee housing and the prefecture can really condition the perception of these new people in the local communities and either further integration or delay, if not block integration. Nico, I don't know if you wanted to add something.
Yeah. So, however, Monterodoni didn't change since both these migrants arrived, because some change was in the first year because of the public opinion change. So the community is the same now because we cannot see the migrants in town. So we know they are in Monterodoni, they are living there, but they are not going out. They have just one road, one street, and all the community, and everyone knows that they are there in the Hotel Holiday, but no one is going there. And basically now, even the volunteers, they are not going there anymore because when they arrived, some maybe 30, 40 volunteers, which is a great number for a small community, 40 volunteers used to go there every day. And now they're not going there anymore because they understood this is a business stuff. This is not social stuff. This is a business issue for them, for the owner, and for the staff. And the staff of that reception center It's composed by 20 people. 20 people before 2014. On 20 people, 17 people were unemployed. So they were speaking very bad about migration, but after they arrived, now they have a job. So when volunteers understood, okay, we are going there trying to do our best, but they're just making money here. We're sorry for the migrants, but maybe we could plan some activities outside the center. But outside the center is a problem because they are not allowed to come in the main square. We call the piazza, which is the place where in Italy, in small towns in Italy, the community lives. So they are not allowed to come in the piazza. So this is a huge barrier between the migrants and these volunteers. Not between us and them, because we are just friends. We are not volunteers, we are not workers there, we are not experts, we are not journalists, we are not students, we are just friends. So this is a great barrier, and Monterodoni didn't change at all. Life is normal.
Okay, this will be the last question before we open it up to the audience for Q&A. So this is happening in Europe, it's happening in Italy, it's not happening for us, or at least we're portraying it in the news as happening to you guys. How would you tell an average American walking down the street, you know, this is why you should care about this issue, this is something that's important to everybody? How would you go about that conversation?
Questa è una situazione che sta capitando
I unfortunately suffer from convolution.
Quindi tu come spiegheresti?
I think there are a couple of major aspects. One is the comparison with the United States, and we've only been in town for a day or so, but I believe Pennsylvania votes today or
Come
tomorrow,
spiegheresti
Tuesday.
un americano che passa per strada
And
perché
following from
questa è
afar
una cosa
your
che loro dovrebbero sapere ed è una
presidential
questione
primaries,
importante.
questions of walls and barriers have come up quite a lot. So this is an easily transferable question even to North America. It's something that Europe has been struggling with on all of the eastern and southern borders. Most recently, we with Austria. So on the other level, it's something that we have shared throughout lots of different countries and lots of different points of time, and including recently. The other thing is that this kind of pressure is putting political pressure on the European Union, which affects our currency. So even if you want to look simply at the business and financial question, this significant issue is not only one of Mediterranean security, and it's not only a local issue, it actually affects the way Europe works now and is going to work. So Europe is a major partner of North American countries and also Middle Eastern and countries around the world. Is in a crisis. It's in a continental crisis because of this issue, and the way we end up dealing with this will affect the way that countries around the world are able to interact. The Mediterranean's at the center, and Italy's in the center of the Mediterranean, so how this crossroads keeps traffic flowing is going to affect all of us. Pass that down to you guys if you guys.
Diciamo, più che diciamo, argomentare o spiegare perché questa è una diciamo, questione cruciale, penso che questo sia chiaro, diciamo, evidente un po' per tutti che diciamo, le migrazioni sono un processo sono dei processi e l'uomo da quando diciamo, dalle sue origini diciamo, si è spostato per varie ragioni. E, il problema è che diciamo, quello che per ritornare alla questione dei media, del discorso politico, quello che molto spesso si tace il fatto sono essenzialmente le nostre responsabilità, le responsabilità dei nostri governi nell'andare ad intaccare anche degli equilibri locali e nel continuare ancora a destabilizzare gli equilibri politici in posti caratterizzati comunque da diverse forme di precarietà e da diverse forme di crisi che possono essere di carattere ambientale, legati alla povertà o legati semplicemente a conflitti politici, conflitti interetnici e di varia natura. Ora, diciamo che una cosa che, per ritornare anche un po' al punto cruciale diciamo, il senso, il motivo per cui noi siamo qui oggi a parlare di quella che diciamo viene chiamata crisi migratoria, ma il termine crisi non è neutrale ed è utilizzato in quanto tale per dare a questo fenomeno sempre la forma dell'emergenza, per poterlo affrontare nei termini di un'emergenza, quindi in maniera repressiva o di controllo poliziesco, evitando e accentuando il rallentamento di alcuni processi di integrazione. Quindi diciamo quello che ci può aiutare in un certo qual modo a cogliere la complessità del fenomeno, quello che non bisogna perdere di vista appunto è la complessità di questo fenomeno e forse diciamo ci fa bene ascoltare delle storie non dette o ci fa bene anche ascoltare semplicemente delle storie comuni che molto spesso fanno piangere, piangere però delle lacrime che non sono solo di compassione, non sono di compassione, sono principalmente di rabbia e di odio verso l'ingiustizia e verso qualsiasi tipo di discriminazione.
Okay. So, first of all, migration is a process that man has been through since there was man. It's something that we've always done and always will do, and labeling it as a migration crisis is not a neutral way to go about it. It turns it into an emergency, which then makes it into a more of a police matter. So it's more about, since it's a crisis, it's more about public safety. We also need to think about our governments and the political situations which we and our governments are going and destabilizing, both politically and environmentally in certain regions, which lead to certain mass migrations and lead to what we are viewing as this problem right now. Excuse me. Yeah. And so it is very important for us to listen to and read the stories, as he was saying, of these migrants and learn about their stories. And listening to them, as we did in Hotel Holiday, you might cry. And some of them are very sad stories, but you don't cry always tears of compassion. Very often they're tears of anger for the injustices that are being done to these people.
Thank you very much. Now we're going to open up to Q&A to any audience members, so if anybody has a question.
Ho paura che ti sto storpiando
you
troppo.
can come
perché-
up.
What's the average age of the migrants, the people that come?
The question is, what is the average age
L'età
of
media
the
di un
typical
migrante che
migrant
arriva.
to come to-
Oh, there. Most of them, they are between 20 and 28.
Mhm.
28.
They've lived in their country
Mhm.
for that many years,
Yeah.
and they can't make it there. And so the forest like make this trip to come, they could die doing it,
They
you know?
die.
And it just, I always ask the question,
Yeah.
where is their government to help them? You know, of all countries, you know, if they started there, we wouldn't have this issue. You know, where is the world getting together to help these people in their own country, so they don't have to leave their country, where they were born human beings.
Yeah.
No matter what country they come from, they're still human beings. And, it's just so difficult. I caught my blessing the other day. I was born in America. And it's just how are these people, let's, try to help these people from there. I mean, they don't have to come to Italy and then be, scared to come in.
Yeah.
Let them live in their own country with their foreign race. But how are we going to do this?
I think you've hit the nail on the head with one of the primary problems of the issue. I'm sorry. I think you've hit the nail on the head with that because a lot of the countries we've been dealing with, mostly Nigerian, Senegalese, and countries that have our nation states out of the post-colonial phase of European imperialism. So they're countries with new institutional histories. Italy's institutional history is only 150 years old, and the most recent iteration of that is only since 1947. So in a way, we've got young governments that are prone to resource and economic-based corruption, clientism, organized crime, this sort of thing. So, and that destability or lack of stability in the institutions is what pushes so many people to hear of a better life in the former, often initially in France and England, and now again in Italy, more recently in Italy, to hear of a better life in Europe, or at various times in the history of this country, also to hear of a better life in the United States, and to take the risk. You can imagine not finding a successful path in your home country, some of them because of guerrilla activities on the African Bight, some of them because of the border wars between so many of the Central African countries that cause, we could talk about Boko Haram and the unrest in eastern Nigeria. And their own governments aren't able to create a peaceful environment in their countries because they're not organized well enough to deal with the internal issues and with all the foreign pressure on collecting resources. And I don't just simply mean oil companies and this sort of thing. Even around their own countries, there's a great deal of instability in the post-colonial world. Another issue is they're young and they have hope, and so they take the chance. But it can take 3 years to get through Libya. And by the time you've gone through it, it can take 6 months. You could do it in 2 weeks or 3 weeks. But you've probably spent something like $2,000 or $3,000, the equivalent, and spent some time in some fairly scary prisons. And you've watched the initial cohort who left with you dwindle as you go through the desert and this sort of thing. So by the time you get to a European country, it can be years later. And those formative years, and we in education deal with this all the time, getting people, young people, to understand their opportunities and be able to exploit their opportunities, also in a socially responsible way, is one of the things that we have got enormous institutional support to do. When your country doesn't have that, and is based off in perhaps a largely agricultural economy or a resource exploitation economy, you have people that don't know what their options are, and they listen to the good story and are drawn in by it, but it costs them so much. So by the time they get to Italy, they're often psychologically damaged people. And this is a question that southern or Mediterranean countries deal with as soon as they come off the boats. They're given an impact psychologist at the point of arrival. But they need follow-up so that they can understand what's happening to them. And so much, in fact, the film, I think, is called Limbo because it's so hard to understand what's happening to them. What can we do about it is as Asunta was saying, the problem of using terms like crisis and emergence hides the idea that there are also great opportunities for intercultural learning here, but there's also great responsibility. And I think, one of the reasons I spoke earlier about the sort of hope that this situation still gives me is I think because the question is so prevalent now and so important to the fabric of our political society in Europe, we're starting to have to face some of those responsibilities. And those responsibilities go back quite a long way. I'm going to pass this over.
So sometimes, this is pretty weird because sometimes they don't choose to come in Italy. They're going. We met Fufana, all the crew, and us. We were very impressed, very touched about his story because he didn't choose to come. And he went just in Libya because a friend of him told him, come here, because here it is. Here we can have a job, a good job, we can work. And he was a little bit angry with us because we represented the media, the public opinion for him. We were the first part of the society he met. And when he arrived in Libya, he didn't choose to come in Italy, to leave Africa. And he told us, for example, people over the world thinks that people is dying just on boats, during the trips on boat. It's not true. This is not true. People is dying during the trip when they leave their own country to go to Libya. Because they are on a van, 35 people every Monday, every Wednesday. And every Monday, every Wednesday, maybe 9, 10 people every month on one van are dying. So this is the stories, news we have, and he was telling just this. I didn't choose. He was 42. He had a job in his country. He had a job in Libya, but he was in jail in Libya. He was forced to work because just this is the ignorance in some country in Africa. I have to leave my country for a better life. This is not true. You're going to Libya, you're not going to have a better job or a better life because you're going to jail. You're forced to work, and they forced you to save money and pay $3,000, 3,000 euros, and leave the country to pay the trip on boat.
Thank you guys very much. I think we all got another round of applause.